In October of 2016, Tesla made a promise to almost everyone who bought one of its cars. It said, and this is the exact wording, that every vehicle it produced now had the hardware needed for full self-driving capability at a safety level substantially greater than that of a human driver. The hardware was already in the car. Full self-driving was, in effect, a software update away. 10 years later, in April of 2026, Tesla admitted the opposite. On its own earnings call, Elon Musk said the roughly 4 million cars sold on that promise simply do not have the capability to ever drive themselves unsupervised. The chip inside them, he explained, has only 1/8 of the memory bandwidth it would need. Those cars will never get there. And quietly, around the middle of 2024, as lawsuits piled up, Tesla deleted the 2016 blog post that made the promise in the first place. So you could stop right there and conclude the whole thing was hype. But that would miss what actually happened. Because the system that finally did arrive might be the most capable driving software ever put in a consumer car. And the people who say so are not Tesla's marketing department. They're independent testers with no reason to flatter the company. That tension is what this episode is about. Tesla's entire artificial intelligence story, the part of the stock that isn't about selling cars, rests on this one piece of software. So we're going to ask 3 things. How good is full self-driving really? What is that software worth as a business on its own? And what has to go right to close the last gap? Here's the lens to judge everything by. 2 different questions hide inside how good is it. Capability, how well the car drives, and value, what the prize is actually worth. And those 2 only connect at one specific line. Right now, every full self-driving car on the road is what's called supervised. A human sits in the driver's seat, hands ready, eyes on the road, legally responsible for everything the car does. The prize, the Robotaxi, the big numbers, the reason the stock carries an AI premium, only switches on when the car crosses to unsupervised, no driver at all. That crossing is the entire story. Everything we price in this episode depends on which side of that line the software is really on. We'll give you the calibrated answer at the end. So why is this so hard a decade in? Start with the ladder the industry uses to grade these systems. There's a standard rulebook, written by engineers, that sorts self-driving into levels. The one that matters here is the jump from level 2 to level 4. At level 2, the car can steer and brake for you, but you are fully and legally responsible. That's the box every version of full self-driving has ever sat in, from the first release a decade ago to the latest one. At level 4, there's no driver inside a defined area. That's Waymo, the driverless taxi service. That's the box that pays. And here's why that line is the whole story, not a technicality. The moment the system moves up from level 2, responsibility flips, from the person in the seat to the company that built the car. The capability milestone and the money pivot are the same event. You can see how unsure the market is just from the range of professional price targets on the stock. They run about 15-fold apart, from around $25 a share at the most bearish firm to roughly $800 at the most bullish. That is not a normal disagreement about a normal business. That's the market trying to price a coin flip on a single event. And the honest, uncomfortable fact underneath it, after 10 years, full self-driving is still on the rung below the one that pays. Best system with a driver has never been the thing that makes the money. Only no driver does. If the whole prize rests on believing Tesla's next, it's coming. Look at the company's record of saying exactly that. This is where the bull and the bear are really arguing. It's as much a trust problem as a technology one. Go back through the timeline. In 2016, the hardware was already in your car. In 2019, Musk said Teslas would be fully driverless anywhere by 2020. In 2020, he said there'd be 1 million robotaxis on the road the following year. People who track these predictions count roughly 20 actual driverless cars by 2026. And by those same trackers' tally, Musk's self-driving timelines have come true only a small fraction of the time. The bear reads that record one way. The hardware is done, was said twice, and broken twice. So the burden of proof on this time the crossing is close should be high. That's fair, but there's an honest counter that belongs right next to it. Every one of those broken promises was right about the direction and wrong about the date. The cars genuinely did get better every single year. The capability arc never reversed. So the discount the market applies isn't really on whether Tesla gets there. It's on when. The trajectory is real, the calendar is the problem. And that deleted 2016 blog post matters here, because the promise isn't just embarrassing now, it's legally live. It sits underneath active lawsuits from owners who say they paid for something they were told their car could already do. So, here's the capability, at full strength, with nothing shaved off. Around 2023 and 2024, Tesla rebuilt full self-driving from the ground up, and it's a genuine engineering change, not a marketing reskin. The old system worked the way you design it yourself. Separate handwritten modules, one to see, one to plan, one to steer, stitched together with, by Tesla's own account, more than 300,000 lines of code. The new system threw all that out. In its place is a single neural network, raw camera video in one end, driving actions, steer, accelerate, brake, out the other. They cut the old handwritten code by something like 100-fold. Tesla's head of self-driving, Ashok Eluswamy, frames the difficulty without hype. The cameras pour in some 2 billion pieces of information. The system must crush down to just 2 decisions: how much to turn, how much to push the pedal, dozens of times every second. The hard part is learning the right cause, because the car ahead signaled, not because a tree branch moved. Now, the single best piece of evidence that this works comes from outside Tesla. 4 credible independent testers, people who review this software for a living, with no stake in the company, separately watched the latest version handle fast food drive-thrus. The car pulled up to the order speaker, stopped, moved to the payment window, waited, and pulled forward when the transaction finished. Across 4 different chains. And here's the part that matters. Tesla never trained it to do that, and never advertised it. The system generalized to a situation outside what it was taught. That is the strongest single sign the new approach is doing something real. One distinction is worth getting right, because it often gets muddled. Andrei Karpathy, who ran Tesla's AI work for years, gets the credit for the cameras-only philosophy. But he left in 2022, before this rewrite. The single network build itself was shipped by Eluswamy's team after he was gone. But step back, because all of that is a system with a human babysitting it. And the same panel of reviewers that filmed the flawless drive-thru also filmed the new version regressing, stabbing the brakes for no reason. In one mode, driving 78 miles an hour through a post-60 night construction zone, and 45 through a school zone it appeared to forget. The owners paid the tickets. You'll also hear that the new system tripled how far it goes between serious takeovers in a matter of weeks. Treat that as direction, not a fact. It comes from an unaudited, self-reported source that has also shown the software getting worse between updates. So the honest verdict on capability is this. With a driver in the seat, full self-driving is probably the most capable system of its kind anyone has shipped to a consumer. That's a real achievement. It is also, by independent tester consensus, unproven beyond that. And the people doing the filming lean bullish to begin with. Impressive and not yet trustworthy at the same time. Impressive against its old self is one thing. The question that decides the money is different. Is it better than the human it has to replace? The thing it must beat isn't a rival product. It's the person at the wheel. The natural way to measure that is to ask how far the car goes before a human has to grab the wheel to avoid trouble. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody measures it the same way, so there is no agreed number. The published estimates run from about 13 miles between serious takeovers at the harsh end to about 9,000 at the generous end. That's a 700-fold spread. That gap isn't 700 times more skill in one test than another. It's 4 things stacked on top of each other. What counts as a takeover? Every nervous tap of the wheel, or only the saves that prevented a crash? Who's doing the counting? A bullish analyst, a crowd of owners, or a professional tester deliberately trying to break it? What roads? Easy highway, or hard city streets at night in the rain? And which version of the software? Because it genuinely varies month to month. The most adversarial professional test landed near 13 miles. A disinterested safety researcher landed near 100. And there is no audited, standardized figure anywhere. That absence is itself the problem. You cannot underwrite unsupervised as close without a number, and there isn't one. The same disagreement shows up in the safety claim. Tesla markets full self-driving as around 10 times safer than a human driver. Its own head of self-driving says, more carefully, at least 2 times. And an independent safety researcher named Phil Koopman, correcting for how the comparison is built, lands near 1.1 times, roughly even with a human. The corrections matter. Tesla's cars are newer, its miles skew toward easy highway, and it counts a much shorter window around a crash than the standard does. So the same system is sold as 10 times safer and measures as roughly human level, depending on who does the math. Now here's the part that ties it together, and it's the most important idea in this whole episode. The safety driver isn't a feature you switch off. It's the thing that has hidden every failure so far. Every single takeover is a crash that didn't happen, because a human was there to catch it. So the day you remove that human, the takeover rate becomes the crash rate. The saves stop being saves, and the only evidence that tells you what happens then is miles driven with no one in the seat, of which there are about 20 cars worth. on a few map streets in Texas. There's an economic version of the same point. Supervised full self-driving doesn't actually save you the cost of a driver, because you still have to sit there and pay attention. It sells convenience, not labor. The only version that beats the human on money is the one with no human in it, which is exactly why the entire prize lives on the far side of that one line. So let's value it, keeping two questions apart that are easy to blur. First, is it worth it to the customer? Second, can Tesla make money selling it? Start with the customer. Full self-driving isn't a fuel-saving story. It doesn't pay for itself by cutting a bill. So the real question is simply whether the convenience is worth $99 a month. And the clearest answer is the one customers are already giving with their wallets. Of all the Tesla owners who could subscribe, only about 5% actually do. Roughly 476,000 active subscribers out of a fleet of more than 9 million cars. The price is $99 a month, $49 for owners of the older driver assist package, €99 in Europe. And as of February of 2026, you can't buy it outright anymore. It's subscription only worldwide. What would change that 5% answer? The unlock. You can sleep in the car is the thing that would justify charging more. A step toward, say, $200 a month. But notice the trap. Even the customer's reason to pay more is gated on the same single event. After a decade at $99, a 5% take rate is telling you most owners don't yet find the supervised version worth it. Now the second question. Can Tesla actually make money on this? And here's the single most important number in the episode, because it's almost always reported wrong. You'll see headlines that Tesla has well over 1 million paying full self-driving customers. And people multiply that by $99 and get something like $1.2 billion a year. That's wrong. Tesla's own finance chief has said about 70% of those paid customers bought the feature outright years ago. They pay nothing each month now. Only the roughly 476,000 monthly subscribers actually generate recurring revenue. Do that math, and it's about $546 million a year. Real, but a quarter of the number you'll often hear. What's a software business throwing off $546 million a year worth? Software companies typically sell for several times their yearly revenue, which would put this somewhere between $3 and $8 billion. Call it 5.5 at the middle. But be honest about that comparison. We don't have clean named peer companies in front of us, and a single product line growing slowly, with a regulator circling, might deserve the low end. So the fair way to say it is a range. Roughly $3 to $5.5 billion. That's the floor. That's the part you can underwrite today, with no Robotaxi assumed at all. The thing that would swing the profits the most? The margin is simply not disclosed. Full self-driving is buried inside Tesla's services business, which earns only about 9 cents of gross profit on each dollar of sales. Software like this should run far higher, and one analyst guesses around 85%. The honest statement is, Tesla discloses no full self-driving margin. Every figure you hear is an estimate, and the only way to know would be a breakout the company may never give. And don't be fooled by the $4 billion of so-called deferred revenue on Tesla's books. That's not locked-in full self-driving money. It's a bundle of full self-driving, plus supercharging, plus connectivity, plus over-the-air updates, all mixed together. Tesla doesn't break out the full self-driving piece, so we leave it out of the headline, rather than overstate the line. Now the part that actually matters, how much this could be worth. The whole answer comes down to two things: how many people pay, and when, if ever, the unsupervised unlock arrives. In the bear case, no unlock, the price stays, some people drift away, the business is worth around $22 billion by 2030. In a base case, where the unlock lands around 2029 and more people subscribe, roughly $60 billion. In the bull case, unlock around 2027, far more people paying, price stepped up to about $200 a month, about $220 billion. Every one of those is our model, not Tesla's, and labeled that way. But the most likely real outcome is probably none of those three. It's the messy middle. The unlock lands but underwhelms. It arrives a bit late, only in some places. The price holds nearer where it is, then doubling. That case is worth somewhere around $40 to $70 billion. Not the clean bear, not the bull. A fat middle the headline scenarios tend to skip. Wall Street's clean estimates of just the software, separate from Robotaxi, sit much higher. One major bank, RBC, puts it around $211 billion. Another, in an older note, around $283. It's worth knowing those exist, as a rough bound on the size. But be careful with them. RBC gets to its number assuming $50 a month, and very high adoption. Our bull gets to a similar number assuming $200 a month, and lower adoption. Those aren't two methods landing on the same truth. They're opposite assumptions colliding on a headline. Treat the big numbers as the order of magnitude the upside could reach. Nothing more precise. And here's the discipline that keeps this honest. A business that spans $22 billion to $220 billion on a single yes or no event isn't a steady software business. It's one leveraged bet wearing a software costume. And calling it the subscription business can quietly launder a Robotaxi bet into a tamer-sounding story. So we draw a hard line. Only the floor and the no unlock bear are clean of that bet. Everything above is option value on the unlock. Real, but contingent. One more thing sits beside all of this as a cost, not revenue. Those roughly 4 million older cars that can never go unsupervised. Tesla may owe their owners something. Making them whole could run around $16 billion, and Tesla has set aside no money for it. Hold that against the floor, not the bull. $16 billion is about 3 times the entire $5.5 billion base business. Immaterial if you're dreaming about the bull. Every bit of that bet rests on one design choice. Cameras alone. No LiDAR, the spinning laser sensor most rivals use, and no radar. That choice is either the moat that lets Tesla generalize everywhere cheaply, or the physical ceiling that caps it in bad weather. Let's argue it both ways. The case for it, at full strength, comes from Eliswamy himself. It's not a sensor problem, he argues. It's an artificial intelligence problem. The cameras already capture the information they need. The hard part is teaching the software to extract it. Humans, after all, drive with 2 eyes and a brain. And the independent testers reached the same conclusion just by watching. The failures they saw weren't the car failing to see something. They were the car failing to decide correctly about what it saw. But here's where you have to be precise. The camera itself is no longer the advantage. Cameras-only systems are now ordinary. China's Xpeng ships one too, by its own account. And LiDAR, the expensive sensor cameras were supposed to make unnecessary, has collapsed in price from around $75,000 a decade ago to a few hundred today. So the cost edge has mostly narrowed away. What's actually left as Tesla's moat isn't the lens, it's the data, and we'll come to whether that holds. The single sharpest fact in this whole story: American safety regulators opened an investigation in March of 2026, covering more than 3.2 million Tesla vehicles. The subject is exactly this: cameras only, full self-driving, failing to recognize when it's been blinded by sun glare, by airborne dust or fog. Which is precisely the condition Tesla, back in 2016, sold radar to handle before it removed the radar. And the tell is Tesla's own words to the regulator. The investigation cites 9 crashes, one of them fatal. Tesla looked at them and said its software fix may have affected 3 of the 9. Read that again. By Tesla's own analysis, the fix would not have prevented 6 of the 9. To an engineer, that's the difference between a tuning bug and a structural limit. A patch that fixes only a third of the cases is the signature of a wall you can't code around. A camera cannot recover light it never received. Ford's chief executive, Jim Farley, put the hardware version of the worry plainly. Where a camera goes completely blind, LiDAR still sees what's in front of you. This investigation is, in effect, the live test of the entire cameras-only thesis. Tesla does have an answer to the broader you can't test the rare stuff problem. It says it's built its own Learn simulator, a system that can replay past failures against new software and invent dangerous situations to test against. That's a genuine, sophisticated method, but it's Tesla's own and unaudited. It pushes back on the criticism with words. It doesn't independently prove the car is safe. And here's the cleanest version of the doubt. Humans drive with eyes is an analogy, not a proof. Humans also pull over when they're blinded. The whole problem the regulator is investigating is the car failing to know it's blinded. If that limit is physical, about photons the camera never gets, then no amount of extra data closes it. So suppose cameras are enough. Can Tesla beat the competition and reach the whole country? 2 comparisons here, and getting the right one is half the battle. The wrong comparison is the one Tesla obviously wins. Against other driver assist systems, General Motors Super Cruise, Ford's Blue Cruise, full self-driving is plainly broader. Those rivals only go hands-free on pre-mapped highway, and you still have to watch the road. Mercedes has the only system that legally lets you look away, but only under 40 miles an hour, in daylight, on certain pre-approved freeways. Full self-driving drives city streets, door to door. It wins that contest easily. But that's the wrong yardstick, for the reason this episode keeps returning to. Doing more with a driver is not the same as needing no driver. Beating the driver assist field measures the wrong thing. The real bar is Waymo. And on the one measure that defines the prize, driverless miles, with nobody in the seat, the gap is stark. Waymo runs somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 fully driverless cars, across 10 to 12 cities, about 500,000 rides a week, more than 170 million driverless miles, and it has the only large peer-reviewed safety study in the field. Over 56.7 million driverless miles, with a 92% reduction in crashes that injured pedestrians. Tesla has published nothing of comparable rigor. Tesla's own no-driver footprint? Roughly 20 to 40 cars in 3 Texas cities. That's a gap of something like 100 to 150-fold on the exact metric that matters. Waymo has crossed the line. Tesla is still racing toward. So, where is Tesla's durable advantage? Honestly, the data. The strongest version of that argument comes from an independent engineer who used to work at Tesla, James Duma. His point is structural. To build a system like this, he says, you need 3 things at once: a giant computer to train on, an artificial intelligence team, and an enormous fleet of cars collecting real-world driving. No competitor has all 3. A car maker starting today would need about 5 years just to build the fleet. By his estimate, nobody else has even 1,000th of the data. Tesla says its cars now feed back something like 28 million full self-driving miles a day, and that it's crossed 10 billion miles in total. Those are Tesla's own figures, not independently audited, so take them as claims. But even discounted, it's a real-world data lead no one can quickly copy. And scaling it isn't a factory problem. The software ships free, over the air, to about 9 million capable cars. The only constraint is whether it can jump from a few mapped cities, supervised, to everywhere, unsupervised. That's a generalization problem, not a manufacturing one. The next big step is a version Tesla calls 15, roughly a 10-fold jump in the size of the model, expected late 2026 or early 2027. But here's the catch that should bother any careful investor. There is no published, testable benchmark it has to clear. No target number, no defined conditions, which leaves the door wide open to declaring 70% unsupervised in Texas and calling it ready for the nation. And the demonstrations everyone points to run on a crutch. Every no-driver mile today is on streets Tesla has painstakingly mapped in high definition first. Austin, San Francisco. That mapping takes something like 500 to 1,000 hours of work per city. That does not scale to 50 cities. So the very demos held up as proof of nationwide self-driving depend on something that itself can't go nationwide. And the single most revealing fact in the whole scaling story? The no-driver fleet meant to prove this works actually shrank. It went from 39 cars in mid-May of 2026 to about 20 late that month, even as Tesla expanded the area it covers 12-fold. More territory, fewer cars. Spread that thin, it works out to about 12 square miles per car versus well under 1 for Waymo and Phoenix. That's a coverage map that looks like scaling and isn't. It's also worth knowing Tesla isn't alone. In China, Baidu and Pony.ai are already running driverless taxis at something close to Waymo's scale, and at least one says it's reached break-even on the rides. Though their approach, like Waymo's, leans on mapped, fenced-off areas, not Tesla's bet of going anywhere. And the dream of Tesla licensing its software to other car makers? Base it at 0. The supplier Mobileye already has its chips in more than 230 million vehicles. The reason no car maker has taken Tesla's offer isn't that the software is bad. It's structural. No car maker hands the brain of its cars to its single fiercest rival and feeds it their data. As Ford's Farley said, asked to compare, Waymo is better. The companies that win these deals win precisely because they don't sell cars against you. So the moat now rests entirely on the data, and the cleanest counter to that is already live. NVIDIA is selling a system that manufactures rare driving situations synthetically, so rivals don't have to log them in the real world. It's unproven either way. NVIDIA's own tests still show Tesla ahead on highways, but it's a real, unrefuted threat to the one moat left. And Tesla's own readiness bar quietly slid from 6 billion miles to 10 billion with no unlock. The first sign the data flywheel may be flattening exactly when the bull needs it to accelerate. But the honest bull counter belongs here too. Waymo's 170 million miles are trapped inside the cities it mapped. They can never reach your car in your town. Tesla's architecture is the opposite. The day the unlock fires, the software lands on millions of cars across the whole map at once. On that view, the 100-fold gap isn't a moat Waymo holds. It's a snapshot that inverts the instant capability, crosses the line. The catch again? A future event, not today's fact. And if Tesla needs pre-mapping too, the leapfrog narrows. Say Tesla cracks it. Is it even allowed to flip the switch? This is where most coverage gets it backwards. Regulation isn't a wall in front of the capability, or in front of the little software business that exists today, but it is the single biggest swing factor on the two things the whole upside rests on, the unlock and that 4 million car liability. Here's the part almost nobody covers, and it genuinely favors Tesla. In the United States, there is no federal permission slip to launch a self-driving car. Car makers certify their own vehicles as meeting the safety rules, and the regulator only steps in afterward if something goes wrong. So legally, unsupervised full self-driving can launch the moment Tesla is willing to own the liability. No statute stands in the way. What governs the speed is the states. California's permit can take 12 to 18 months. Nevada and Texas are lighter. And the federal self-driving law that's been promised for years keeps dying in Congress and would barely touch Tesla's path anyway. So treat Washington as a non-event here. The live catalyst is that investigation we mentioned, the one over 3.2 million cars and the cameras going blind. It's important to be exact about what it is. It is an open engineering analysis, not a recall. It could end in a closure, a warning letter, or a forced recall. 3 different outcomes and we don't know which. Air it as a real risk that could force a recall, never as a verdict that has. But it carries weight precisely because of that 3 of 9 admission. Tesla handed the regulator evidence that its own fix doesn't solve most of the cases. That's the kind of finding a regulator can't simply let a company patch away. Meanwhile, the courts are doing the work a regulator can't. In a case called Benavides, a Florida jury found Tesla partly responsible for a fatal crash involving its driver assist software. It split the blame 67% to the driver, 33% to Tesla, and put Tesla's share at about $242 million. The trial judge refused to throw the verdict out in February of 2026. The appeal is still pending. It has not been upheld on appeal, and you'll hear people say it has. Here's why a verdict like that matters to the business. By most accounts, Tesla's own insurance and most ordinary policies exclude crashes that happen in autonomous mode. So a verdict like that flows to Tesla largely uninsured. And the first crash in true unsupervised mode becomes the precedent everyone argues over. The 4 million car problem roots the same way, through courts and class actions, here and abroad, not a regulator's order. There's no template for forcing a swap of 4 million computers, and Tesla has set aside no money for any of it. Tesla won its first European approval in 2026, but only the supervised version, on a single provisional Dutch certificate that lapses in 6 months if the wider European Union rejects it, which Sweden is recommending over the car's habit of exceeding the speed limit. And that supervised approval moved essentially 0 new car demand, which tells you from another angle, only the unsupervised unlock is the regulatory event that's actually worth anything. The bear's sharpest point lives right here. Unlike General Motors, which diffused its own Robotaxi investigation partly by shutting the service down, Tesla can't shut down a consumer fleet of millions, so this investigation likely runs its full course. And the permissive system cuts both ways. No federal approval also means no federal protection. The true date on the unlock was never a law, it's liability, which is exactly why full self-driving has stayed supervised for a decade, with no rule requiring it to. So strip it all down. If this entire investment turns on one thing, what is it? It's a single date. The day the driver can stop watching, working through 3 levers that all move together. How many people pay, how much they pay, and how many cars sell because of it. And here's what the big analyst numbers quietly assume, that they never say out loud. To get to 200+ billion, you need roughly half to 2/3 of all Tesla owners paying for it, and you need the unlock at the higher price. Strip that out, and the number collapses. So the famous 15-fold disagreement between the bulls and the bears isn't really 15 disagreements, it's one, whether and when supervised becomes unsupervised. Now to keep the bear honest, the real downside isn't losing a $5 billion software line, it's bigger than that. Tesla's whole company is worth around $1.3 trillion today, and a large slice of that is the market pricing this autonomy story as a question of when, not if. One bank alone values the Robotaxi business at over $600 billion, and the software at $200 more. If full self-driving is ever ruled supervised forever, or that investigation forces a structural recall, the stock doesn't just lose the software line, it loses the premium, because the market stops pricing the if as a when. That's the real shape of the bet, and it's asymmetric on both ends. The bull inverts the Waymo gap the instant capability crosses the line. The bear evaporates the premium the instant it's ruled out. So here's the framework to walk away with, and it's a demand, not a number. Before you'd underwrite the unlock, insist on a real, testable benchmark, a frozen definition of what counts as a serious takeover. The rate broken out for the hard conditions, night, rain, glare, dust. A target with a margin of error and the miles behind it. And a way to check it that doesn't run through Tesla's own simulator. That benchmark does not exist today, which is exactly why the upside is, right now, genuinely unpriceable, and one sobering prior. On a track record of hitting its own self-driving dates only a small fraction of the time, Even penciling the unlock in for 2027 to 2029 may be generous. The honest odds on the option are lower than the bulls. So here's the calibrated answer to the question we started with. How good is full self-driving? What's the software worth? And what has to go right? It is genuinely the best driver assist software anyone has shipped, with a driver in the seat in good conditions. And it's a real high-margin business worth roughly $3 to $5.5 billion today. That floor is rock solid. You can underwrite it right now, with no Robotaxi in the story at all. That's the part the bear can't take from you. The $200 billion prize is also real and reachable. But it is one bet on one categorical event, the supervised to unsupervised crossing, that hasn't happened yet. It rests on a company with a poor record of hitting its own self-driving dates, dated on a benchmark that doesn't yet exist. And the single most likely outcome is neither the clean bear nor the bull. It's the messy middle. The unlock lands but underwhelms, somewhere around $40 to $70 billion. We lean optimistic, and here's the honest reason. The capability arc is genuinely improving. That's not extrapolating a flat line. And the thing that kills most scale stories, building factories and supply chains, simply doesn't apply, because the software ships free, over the air, to 9 million cars the day it's ready. But that day is the whole thesis. Underwrite the floor with confidence, treat the prize as the upside the math supports, and watch one thing. So here's what to watch from here. Lean more bullish on a few signs. A real, testable, unsupervised benchmark appears, and the next version actually clears it. The no-driver cars start working off the pre-made maps on streets nobody mapped first. The share of owners paying finally breaks out of single digits. Or a single car maker takes a licensing deal and turns that zero into a real line. And lean more bearish on the opposite signs. That camera blinding investigation escalates into a structural recall, or regulators strip the safety claim. NVIDIA's synthetic data is shown to manufacture the rare miles cheaply, and erase the one moat Tesla has left. The data flywheel visibly flattens. That quiet slide from 6 billion miles to 10 billion is the first data point, and a third move would confirm it. Or the unsupervised version arrives broken into city-by-city pieces, gutting the price power the bull is counting on. And one boundary we're holding deliberately. The economics of the Robotaxi network itself, the per-mile money, the remote operators, how busy each car stays, belong to our next deep dive, which inherits the capability premise this episode just earned. Today was about the software and the one line it has to cross. Because in this story, more than almost any other, that one date, the day the driver can stop watching, is the thesis. That's our deep dive on Tesla's full self-driving. If it's been useful, please subscribe. Next time, we follow the unlock into the cybercab and the Robotaxi business it's supposed to power. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.